There is a version of this story that often circulates online. One with a shocked face thumbnail, a headline promising a secret admission, and a script filled with fictional dialogue. That version is absent here. What actually exists is something quieter and far more compelling. Two of the most physically iconic figures in action cinema, born on different continents a year apart, who never fought, never trained together, and never shared a film set, yet whose careers remain linked through influence, imitation, and mutual respect. This is that narrative, constructed entirely from Sylvester Stallone's documented public statements about Bruce Lee. Sylvester Stallone was born in July 1946 in Hell's Kitchen, New York. Bruce Lee was born in November 1940 in San Francisco while his parents were on tour with a Chinese opera company, and was subsequently raised in Hong Kong. 6 years apart in age, they grew up on opposite sides of the globe under vastly different circumstances. Lee was drawn into martial arts partly to navigate the streets of Kowloon and partly through his father's effort to instill discipline in a headstrong child. Stallone grew up facing a difficult domestic life and a physical disability resulting from birth complications. Forceps damage left part of his face partially paralyzed, creating the distinctive drawl and facial features that later became iconic in cinema. Neither actor achieved stardom easily. Both developed their physiques and professional identities as a direct response to being underestimated. A minor historical detail connects them before either achieved fame. Around 1966, Sacramento television reporter Harry Martin filmed a short segment with Bruce Lee, then 25 years old and co-starring as Kato in The Green Hornet. That same reel of 16mm footage, preserved by the Center for Sacramento History, also included interviews with other rising figures, including Stallone. They were not interviewed together, and no record indicates they met on that day. However, it represents a moment where their timelines intersected. Two future icons of physical cinema interviewed by the same reporter with the same camera. At the time, neither possessed the career for which they would later be recognized. Lee was an actor working on a television show that was canceled after one season, years away from the Hong Kong films that established his international status. Stallone was taking various odd jobs in New York, working as a movie theater usher and a fence painter at the Bronx Zoo, while writing unproduced scripts and accepting minor film roles. In the mid-1960s, both were virtually unknown. By the time Stallone was struggling to sell scripts, Bruce Lee had established a new dynamic in American media, an Asian actor who rejected stereotypical roles. He declined minor parts, insisted on choreographing fight scenes with authentic technique, and introduced Western audiences to the concept of martial arts as a serious physical discipline rather than an exotic spectacle. Lee's frustration with Hollywood in the late 1960s led him back to Hong Kong, where The Big Boss and Fist of Fury made him a major figure across Asia, before Enter the Dragon established him as an international crossover star in 1973. He died that same year at age 32, shortly before the film's American release, never seeing the full global impact of his work. The years preceding his final film illustrate how deliberately Lee constructed his career. After The Green Hornet was canceled, he spent years teaching martial arts privately in Los Angeles to prominent Hollywood figures while pitching television and film projects that studios routinely rejected. This included a Western series concept that was later modified and released as Kung Fu, starring David Carradine in the role Lee had envisioned for himself. Being passed over for a project based on his own concept contributed to his decision to move to Hong Kong, where he secured greater creative control and an appreciative audience. By the time Enter the Dragon was produced as a Warner Brothers co-production in 1973, an initiative to bring Lee's Asian success to American audiences, he had already built a massive following through The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, and Way of the Dragon, which he wrote, directed, and starred in. Lee died of cerebral edema in Hong Kong on July 20, 1973, roughly a month before Enter the Dragon's American release. The film achieved massive commercial success and is widely credited with establishing martial arts as a viable genre in Western cinema, a foundation utilized by subsequent generations of action actors, including Stallone. Stallone achieved his breakthrough 3 years later. Rocky premiered in 1976 and reshaped the sports drama genre much like Lee's films had done for martial arts, demonstrating that physical performance could carry profound narrative weight. Both actors established their positions in the film industry by using their physical capabilities to prove their cinematic value. The development of Rocky parallels Lee's struggles with project ownership. Stallone wrote the screenplay in a few days after watching a heavyweight fight between Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner. He refused to sell the script unless he was cast as the lead character, a demand that major studios initially rejected. Stallone maintained his position, accepted a significantly lower payment for the script, and the film ultimately won the Academy Award for Best Picture. While operating in a different genre, the dynamic was similar. An artist convinced of his ability to deliver a specific physical performance, refusing to delegate the role, and ultimately succeeding. In July 2010, during San Diego Comic-Con, Ain't It Cool News hosted a Q&A session with Stallone regarding the release of The Expendables. A fan asked for his perspective on Bruce Lee, his films, his legacy, and his early passing. Stallone's response remains his most direct public statement concerning Lee. He described Lee as rightfully legendary in martial arts and in cinema, emphasizing that Lee's charisma, his presence, appearance, and physical skill single-handedly expanded the market for Asian action cinema in the West. He called Lee's death a true catastrophe, stating his belief that Lee would have continued directing and producing classic action films had he lived. This commentary focuses on professional respect for an actor's impact on the film industry. In the same response, Stallone drew a direct line from Lee through Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jackie Chan, Chuck Norris, and himself, categorizing them as part of a generation of action stars who redefined physical cinema for modern audiences, contrasting them with an earlier era represented by Clint Eastwood, Charles Bronson, and Lee Marvin. In Stallone's view, he did not position himself above Lee, but rather as an actor operating within a market Lee had opened. Stallone highlighted charisma rather than specific techniques, kicks, or fight scenes. He identified screen presence and magnetism as the primary factors that altered industry standards. This analysis aligns with how film historians evaluate Lee's crossover appeal, a combination of discipline, physical precision, and star power. During the same 2010 session, Stallone reflected on his generation's place in cinema history. Asked if another era of stars like himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Bruce Lee would emerge, Stallone stated that that specific era had effectively concluded, as each generation of action performers adapts to changing cultural expectations. This statement places Lee at the origin of the physical action lineage that Stallone identifies with. A clear physical example of Lee's direct influence on Stallone's work is the dragon flag exercise. The movement, lying flat and supporting the entire body weight on the shoulders and upper back, while keeping the torso and legs rigid, is an advanced core exercise closely associated with Lee's conditioning routine. Stallone introduced the exercise to mainstream fitness culture in Rocky IV, 1985, during a training montage set in the Soviet countryside, turning it into one of the most recognizable moments of the franchise. Decades later, Stallone continues to reference the exercise and its origins publicly. In social media posts displaying him performing the movement in his 70s, he has added commentary regarding the physical demands of that training era while acknowledging its source. Stallone chose to retain and feature the exercise most directly associated with Lee. The dragon flag retains a distinct status in fitness culture. For years, it was viewed as an elite exercise omitted from standard gym routines, shared primarily within martial arts circles and through the Rocky IV montage. The growth of online fitness communities in the 2000s and 2010s, along with renewed interest in Lee's training methods, helped re-establish public knowledge of the exercise's true origins. Stallone's film served to popularize a specific element of Lee's physical regimen to a broader audience. The connection between Stallone and Lee is further highlighted by their differing physical philosophies. Lee's approach focused on efficiency, speed over volume, functional strength over body mass, and adaptability over rigid form. He expressed skepticism toward traditional bodybuilding techniques that increase size without enhancing speed or mobility. His physique, lean, defined, and designed for rapid movement, reflected this approach. Stallone's physique, particularly from the 1980s onward, aligned more with bodybuilding principles, substantial muscular mass and heavy physical presence. However, Stallone discussed training discipline in terms similar to Lee's approach, viewing physical development as an ongoing process requiring intense repetition to convey authenticity on screen. Stallone has acknowledged in interviews that the extreme physical demands he and Lee pursued carry long-term physical consequences, including joint strain and persistent injuries. Lee experienced a major back injury during a weightlifting session in the late 1960s, leading doctors to suggest he might not regain his full kicking ability. Both actors constructed cinematic personas through rigorous physical regimens and later acknowledged the long-term impact of those methods. Both developed their physical conditioning from the same fundamental premise: that in action cinema, physical execution must carry the narrative. Before Lee, Western action cinema frequently depicted hand-to-hand combat using simplified staging or stunt work designed primarily for spectacle. Lee's focus on authentic technique, speed, and discipline altered audience expectations. Subsequent action performers and martial artists, including Chuck Norris, Jackie Chan, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Jet Li, have noted Lee's role in creating commercial opportunities for physical storytelling in American film. Chuck Norris, who co-starred with Lee in Way of the Dragon's Coliseum sequence, stated in interviews that when asked who would win a real fight between them, he identified Lee without hesitation. This statement from a world karate champion reflects the regard Lee held among his peers. Joe Louis, an accomplished American karate champion who trained with Lee, similarly evaluated Lee's technical capabilities in serious, measured terms. This level of respect among contemporary fighters and co-stars represents a clear historical record. Stallone's comments reflect this same perspective: direct professional recognition from one action cinema figure toward another. While Stallone's Rocky and Rambo franchises stem from boxing and military drama traditions rather than martial arts, they incorporate Lee's core approach. Physical performance executed with conviction can convey story elements beyond dialogue. When Stallone organized the Expendables franchise in 2010 to bring together prominent action figures, Lee's foundational influence was evident. Stallone cast Jet Li, an actor whose career was influenced by Lee's precedent, as part of the ensemble. The Expendables project was conceived as a tribute to this action legacy, bringing together actors who defined physical action cinema over 4 decades. In his 2010 AICN interview, Stallone noted several actors he sought to including Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal, both of whose careers developed within the market Lee helped establish. Jet Li joined the cast as Ian Yong, performing alongside Stallone's Barney Ross, a modern continuation of the international action dynamics Lee sought to establish. The casting dynamics Lee encountered in the 1960s, where American studios hesitated to center major productions on Asian martial artists, had shifted by 2010 to the point where Jet Li's inclusion in an ensemble cast was an established commercial asset. This structural shift reflects the long-term impact of Lee's work on the industry. Regarding claims of fear or rivalry, Stallone's actual statements do not indicate personal apprehension toward Lee. His public comments reflect professional evaluation, recognizing Lee's charisma, acknowledging the loss to cinema caused by his early death, and noting that subsequent action actors built upon the foundation Lee established. Speculative commentary regarding Lee often fills the void left by his death at age 32. Combined with his documented physical speed, intense training routines, and focused demeanor, hyperbolic narratives occasionally arise claiming that industry figures were intimidated by him. However, direct evidence for such claims regarding Stallone is absent from the public record. Comparing Stallone's actual statements with exaggerated internet narratives reveals a clear distinction. The exaggerated versions depend on rumors of secret rivalries or private admissions. The factual record shows a straightforward professional progression. One performer who expanded the possibilities of physical action on screen, and a subsequent actor who developed his career within that expanded space, openly acknowledging that influence when asked. Bruce Lee died at 32 after fundamentally altering how physical performance was presented in cinema. Sylvester Stallone subsequently built a career based on the principle that rigorous physical preparation and authentic execution can convey narrative depth. Stallone has publicly stated that Lee's presence changed the trajectory of the film industry, incorporated Lee's signature training movement into his own routine for decades, and characterized the loss of Lee's prospective future work as a major loss to cinema. The verified account is not a narrative of secret fear, but one of lasting professional respect across action cinema. This article is based on Sylvester Stallone's documented public statements, including his 2010 Ain't It Cool News Q&A session and public social media references to Bruce Lee's Dragon Flag exercise, alongside established biographical and cinematic history.